So we've got to talk about lots of stuff here today. It is a very action-packed day today, but I want to take things one thing at a time. So let's talk about the pound. Am I a buyer of the pound? Well, it just looks bullish. I've got to be honest. I like the idea of buying dips on the pound. If this thing does come back into play, I'll be interested in picking it up on the long side. And continuing to be bullish on this thing. I mean, this chart is beautiful. We've got a nice upward trend. The trend line traders will love this kind of concept, right? They've got that nice upward trajectory overall. The market structure traders will love this. You've got higher lows and higher highs coming into this market. I would say that the pound dollar, until something breaks on this upward trend, looks very, very good in my personal opinion. And this is a 4-hour chart. So of course, there might be something we could even find on the lower time frames. If you're trading the pound against the US dollar here today, again, we've got our previous resistance. I'm sorry, our previous high. I've got it marked in this dotted line here. But again, support was found around this area. And now we get kind of the early formations of a possible inverted head and shoulders following the announcement of the rate hike today. So really volatile stuff here. And in my opinion, again, more upside for the pound is possible. And if you're a day trader out there, guys, if you're looking at the pound, you're saying, okay, 4-hour chart, I get it. But what about the lower time frames? Well, here's my take. I think if we can break through this level, this becomes a pretty solid level of support for us to go back and retest those highs more in depth. And so what I mean by that is if we look left on this pound USD chart, we've got resistance, resistance, resistance. If we're able to close above this, so for example, if we break this and we have, let's say, a nice strong, we're looking at the 1-hour candle. Let's say we get a 1-hour chart that closes real nice, real strong, perhaps somewhere within this wick that we just made. If we close in that, I think you have potential to drive back up to the previous highs. And again, the pound USD looks strong. It has looked strong. The fundamentals look really good, and we've been bullish on it because of that, right? The UK has a really high inflation problem. Their central bank looks like it needs to stay higher for longer, stay hawkish to get this inflation problem under control. That's somewhat contrarian or contrary to the US, the Federal Reserve, which looks like, again, they may raise one more time, but it's looking like they're at sort of the ending point of their interest rate cycle. Why do I mention that so much? Well, because you guys know I trade indices and gold a lot, and those markets pay close attention to what that Federal Reserve is up to. What's up?
Dude, what happened to you?
Haven't you heard? It's the summer half-off discount sale.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
Right now only, get half off any of our VIP Discord memberships. These memberships include access to our signals, where you can get entries and exits from Frank and I, and full breakdown and analysis with each trade. You can learn our strategies in detail. You can learn how to get funded with our training material to help traders looking for funding. And you can also join the chat room community. We have several membership opportunities, so click the link and check them out for yourself. And remember, you get half off if you either message us or use the discount code you see on the screen now.
Bitcoin, it actually is getting a buy rating on the EDGEFINDER right now. I don't know if you guys trade Bitcoin, but a quick look at Bitcoin, we've got to talk about it for a second. Bitcoin has had a really impressive run, and I own Bitcoin. So let me see if I can show you guys what's left of my position. I did sell some of my Bitcoin position. Let me make sure I log in here. So I'm long Bitcoin. I have been long, and my entry point is around 28,752. Now, at this point, I do not own a full single coin. Per Bitcoin, I have at this point only now 0.23 coins. At one point, this position for me was just about 0.6 Bitcoin. I have sold more than half of it at this point.
Yes, I do have a position from last week on dollar Swiss, which I was discussing with you guys last week. Price came very, very close to my take profit, but obviously the market wanted to do what the market wants to do and pull back against me. So I'm still holding on this position. I've got my stop loss to break even at my entry over there. So it's a make or break with this one. See if we continue to fall and we hit my target, or the market goes back and takes me out of the trade. I'm looking to see maybe if I can get another position onto dollar Swiss. We're coming to some nice areas around here, broken support. turn resistance. If I get some good rejection around table speed confluences, I may look to add to the position. But right now, I don't like the fact that we are rejecting that support, so I will be a little bit careful. But that's the trade I have open. Again, similar to Marco, I'm not really seeing much at the moment in the market. Gold looks like there might be some sells if we continue to break down, but it's still very, very choppy. So last week I was speaking about gold because it looked like we started the crack through support last week, but then we climbed back above it. So I said hopefully gold can really break through to the downside or to the upside. I'm kind of neutral on gold. I just want to find a good trade basically. So if gold can really start pushing to the downside, get away from this mess, show me that, okay, the bears are in control, then I will be looking for some corrections and continuations to the downside, a retest of maybe this low, depending how far we push down. So I'm going to keep an eye on gold. There might be some nice sells if we do finally break down. I think silver is breaking down and sometimes they correlate quite well. So maybe that might happen to gold as well. Pound USD, I'm keeping an eye on this one. I was looking for longs, but I don't like the fact that we've just rejected the highs quite aggressively. And of course, we've just had some news for the pound there. So I think I might let things settle with pound USD. But I was coming to the week looking for a breaking retest of this high. But the fact that we've already hit the high there and coming down off it is not the best sign. And Euro UD, I'm also looking at some sells. We've got some nice bearish structure of this one. So I'm getting ready for a pullback for some more downside. So I'm waiting for a low high to form around there. And those are basically the pairs I'm looking at for the rest of the week.
Very interesting. Yeah. And Miko, you mentioned just sort of the metals market in general, both getting hammered. But what's interesting, I've got an interesting chart for you pulled up. One of the coolest things about TradingView is that they allow you to do, crosses on anything. You can really just compare any two charts. Anyways, what I've got here is the gold to silver ratio. It's traditionally talked about when talking about the metals market, to get an idea of whether or not which one is sort of overpriced or underpriced, or traditionally the idea is that if this thing rises too much, it's saying that gold is perhaps overvalued relative to silver, and if it drops too much, silver is overvalued relative to gold. Anyways, we see today, you mentioned that, Miko, gold and silver both dropping a lot. Silver is actually getting really beaten up right now compared to gold even. So if we take a look at the silver price, silver just falling through the floor. If you were to compare it to the gold price action, right? Gold is just barely underneath its kind of previous low areas of support. Silver, not so much the case. It's fallen straight through the lows. And again, we can kind of compare that to what you had drawn there too, Miko, just this general area of support here. You can see we're just barely underneath it for now. It's really interesting just to watch the metals market fall down so hard. I've made mention to, I think that the high level fundamentals for this stuff is that a lot of central banks are still looking to raise rates, and higher interest rates puts pressure on gold, as we know. And so gold right now is not, yes, this is gold quoted against the dollar, but gold is watching all the central banks, right? The gold market is paying attention to what central bank trends across the world are doing right now. So it's an interesting market to watch. And again, I think that it's just right now, price action looks terrible, in my opinion, for longs. Definitely favors the sellers in terms of the technicals for now. Marco, what do you think on gold? Do you have any opinions on the metals world?
So for me on the 1 hour, it's kind of moving down, but very correctively in this sort of a descending channel. As I said, for me, gold is just so choppy. So the strategy that I trade doesn't really work on it. But overall, I couldn't pick a direction for you, to be honest. It's kind of erratic for me. I would wait it to settle down a bit, possibly show me some nice consecutive blue or consecutive red candles. So yeah, I would just sit on my hands if I was trading this, because I don't see a clear direction picked. I just see sort of erratic V reversal movements, meaning to me that the sellers are not in control, the buyers are not in control. There's still a big fight going on. That's what I would say.
Yep, no, and that's fair. I mean, at the end of the day, if the chart is too choppy if you're a trend trader and the chart is choppy, this is what I say often, and you guys might might feel the same way. A lot of times people will say that they only trade like one currency pair, or they only trade gold, or they only trade the NASDAQ or whatever. And, you know, Marco, if you're able to look at a chart like this and you say, well, you know what, this thing is just not respecting my style. It's not trending well. It's just too choppy. Everything is not following through. I'm going to have a hard time making money here. You know, at the end of the day, it's like when you're looking at this chart, if you were somebody, and many traders do this is why I point this out. Many traders love to just trade gold. And while I think that specializing can be useful, you also have to recognize that there is this temptation if you only trade gold and you want to take trades. You know, if you traded trending markets here, you might not have been able to find good trades for the last 2 months, right? Or 1 month or whatever. So,
Exactly.
you know, if you're going to be trying to actively trade and make money, but you can't trade for 2 months straight, it's going to be hard to make anything. And so what many traders will end up doing is be tempted by the idea of diverging from their strategy in order to place trades and to get involved. So, you know, that's one thing to think about when it comes to trading a particular asset only, or if you trade a basket of things. Miko, do you trade? I know, of course, we talked about several charts and things like that. How many things do you trade in terms of your watch list? How wide does your net go, I guess?
Yeah, it is pretty wide. I trade all Forex majors, minors, gold, silver, and have dabbled in trading Bitcoin, but I don't do it a lot. So mainly just Forex majors, minors, gold and silver. And sometimes I do trade USD peso and USD ZAR as well. So some exotics as well. But it's been a long time since I've traded them. But yeah, for me, mainly the most important thing is the quality of the trade and the setup. So I don't really have too much worry of what asset is I'm trading. I do prefer majors, so I am slightly more drawn to them. But if it's on pound Swiss or gold or USD JPY, I'm not really too bothered. I just want to look for a good setup that fits my plan well and has good market conditions as well, which is trending.
Fair enough. And Marco, to ask you the same question, I know that you trade a confined list. You don't have a ginormous net, but you do have a good diversity of things. You have yen pairs and the dollar. What all do you trade?
Yeah, so 6 of them. Basically, it's EU, EJ, AU, AJ, the pound, and NJ. For me, it covers, let's say, most of the European economy, I would say, or the world economy. You have the euro, you have the dollar, you have the yen, you have the Aussie, which is really important. The Aussie, to me, brings the best percentage. And you have the pound, which is, of course, a big currency pair as well. And then you have NJ, which is more exotic. But because it's more exotic, not a lot of people trade it. So basically, on NJ, I can get in some nice trends. I have found that the less that people trade a pair, the cleaner it moves. So the trends are more sustained. You get longer moves. And I really like it, especially as a trend trader. And I wanted to ask you, Nick, so what percentage of your trading is done on Forex? Because I know you do a lot of gold and S&P. So how much do you actually trade Forex?
Yeah. So for me, I actually trade in terms of, two parts. First, I wanted to just say, in terms of your concept with lesser traded assets, can be very, very interesting. Like the Singapore dollar against the US dollar, for example. Not a super talked about chart, but some of these trends can be really phenomenal, right? You get these really clean moves. Like Marco's pointing out, I just wanted to offer a visual to what you were saying. But to answer your question in terms of capital allocation, for me, most of my active trading capital goes into my Webull account. And because as a US client, I have that barrier where I can't trade CFDs. Like I can't pull up SPX 500 and trade it. I mean, I could if I used like sort of a offshore brokerage, but just using a larger capital basis, I just prefer to keep things in, safely regulated, brokerages. So for what that ends up for me meaning is I have to, trade a Forex brokerage, or I have to trade, a stock brokerage or a futures brokerage. So I would say that a good 80% of my capital allocation goes into trading indices, gold goes into trading options. This is where a lot of my capital allocation goes. And the remaining 20 kind of goes into FX. So, and I do trade currency pairs, but again, we've talked about it today. You know, finding that specialization a little bit is important for every trader. And I just happen to know that you mentioned you like Aussie pairs, Marco. I mean, like for me, I really like the indices and gold. Like that's kind of where I find my specialty. So Marco, you like those Aussie pairs. I mean, you like a basket of things, but you mentioned you really like the Aussie pairs. You know, I like the indices, and I like to trade gold as well. Miko, if you had to pick a favorite, I mean, you mentioned the majors. Do you have any specific major that you like the best?
I'll probably say, I mean, I've been traded Euro USD and Pound USD the most. Those are the pairs that I did most of my learning on. So I probably would say them, but I don't have a favorite, to be fair. Maybe I would drift to the yen pairs a little bit as well, because they do pack a punch sometimes. But yeah, I don't have a favorite. I don't have a favorite. So yeah, very neutral for me.
So your favorite is whichever one is making you money. That's the best answer.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Don't forget to check out the links in the description if you want our broker recommendation, access to our free Discord, free EDGEFINDER, or want to chat with us on Telegram. Remember, you can watch us live in the markets every morning starting at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we have lots more free trading tools and content available on our website, a1trading.com. Thanks for watching.